What is going on, YouTube? So coming back today with my Big Ten preview. I've already done my Pac-12 and my Big 12, and I believe halfway through the Power 5 conferences right now. So got a few more teams to go through with the Big Ten. I'm going to be starting by covering the East and then move into the West. Do my normal format I've been doing with listing the awards at the end, and then listing the standings at the beginning where I think each team will finish and why they will finish where they are. Like I said, I'm going to start in the East, work bottom to top, and kind of work down from there, then work over to the West, and also talk about those teams. So go ahead and start at number 7, and we have the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, a team that struggled but still came away with 4 wins in 2015. A team that I think will struggle even more mightily in 2016. They are playing against what will be, again, a very stout Big Ten East. Big Ten East is very top-heavy. Will probably produce 5 bowl teams. They did last year. And, again, it's going to be a rough time for Rutgers. Looking up and down their schedule, it seems like 2-3 wins will probably be the most likely scenario for them. Obviously, you got dark horses here and there, teams that break out, but it seems like them, along with Purdue, are going to be teams that struggle to get out of the cellar of each division. So, move on to, I believe it's number 6, and we have the Indiana Hoosiers. So, a team that I could see having a bowl season, but they lose a lot of their offense. They're going to have to move on from one of the best running backs in the country, one of the best running backs in the Big Ten, a guy who I could see having a fantastic NFL career, but that's beside the point. They lose Jordan Howard. They also lose their quarterback in Nate Sudfeld. They make a bowl game for the first time since the mid to late 2000s, as in before 2010. And again, this could be a team that does finish 4th or 5th in the division. It's not out of the realm of possibility for them. They did have a successful season last year. It could translate into this year. They did lose their bowl game, though, to Duke. And it's just hard to see them progressing into this season. Again, that turnover on offense is going to be a little bit hard to cope with, in my opinion. Their out-of-conference schedule isn't anything too scary. 2-1 might be able to happen. But anyway, I'll move on to my number 5, and I have the Maryland Terrapins, a team that I actually have a lot of faith in this year. I think they can finally make that leap inside the Big Ten to be able to finally make a bowl game. Again, a team that's relying very heavily on one player in Will Likely, the cornerback, also a return man. They lose one of the more underrated players in the country on defense, in Yannick Gakwe, I think that's how you say it, and then they will be relying on Perry Hills at quarterback. This is a team that draws a pretty easy out-of-conference schedule. 3-0 is not out of the realm of possibility for them, and then also could get 2-3 wins inside the Big Ten. They do get Purdue, so that could be a win there. And a bowl game, I think, is possible. Like I said, I could see 5 teams from the Big Ten East making a bowl game. So move on to number 4, and we've got the Penn State Nittany Lions. So Penn State is that team that's just sitting outside of that group of 3 at the top of Michigan, Michigan State, and Ohio State. They're past the Christian Hackenberg era. Whether that's a good thing or not is going to be left up to the unforeseen eye. To be honest, Trace McSorley, who is going to be coming in this year and playing at quarterback now, looked like he was playing better against Georgia than Christian Hackenberg was when they played in the Tax Slayer Bowl, a game they did lose. So I think this will be a 7 to 8 win team this year. Again, I'm not really sure. I haven't gone that in depth to my team previews yet. That'll be a separate thing. But again, this is a team in a weird spot that will still probably be a bowl team, but is going to have a hard time breaking in that top 3 unless we see a big regression from Michigan State, or hell, even Ohio State could happen. But anyway, move on to my number 3, and I've got the Michigan State Spartans. Now, again, a team experiencing a lot of turnover, probably starting Tyler O'Connor at quarterback as far as I can tell. This is a team that will, again, rely. This is a name that I haven't mentioned in a while. I believe I did in my top 25. But it's a guy they had 2 freshman running backs last year. And I believe the bigger one of them this year will be L.J. Scott. I think this is a team that can progress with him. Obviously, Malik McDowell will be the heart and soul of the defense, a defensive tackle, probably a top 10 pick. But this offense is going to have to rely very heavily on L.J. Scott. He actually won them the Big Ten championship, got that final touchdown, and obviously this is still most likely going to be a top 3 team in the division. Should still be a successful season for them, see if they can stay inside the top 25. So at number 2, I've got the Michigan Wolverines. It's going to be very tightly contested between them and Ohio State. I mentioned this before. I haven't really had a whole lot of people take issue with it yet, just because it hasn't gotten to that hotly debated time of the season yet, where you get the AP rankings out and people, or around media days too, where people vote on the conferences and you can see all that stuff. But a team that still, especially on offense, will have a little bit of question marks. Can they make that next step? Can they play big? Can they move past that Ohio State just massacre? John O'Corn will most likely be the quarterback. Davion Smith, J.Q. Chesson, Jake Butt, they all return on defense. You get back Jordan Lewis, Jabril Peppers, who obviously is a stud. Rashawn Gary, one of the best you bring in Rashawn Gary, one of the best freshman recruits this year. And again, a team that will definitely be fighting for that title spot. So my number 1, obviously, is the Ohio State Buckeyes on the other end of that rivalry of the game. A team that honestly brings back a lot less household names than Michigan. They will be, again, relying on some new faces. The offense pretty much entirely hinges on how well J.T. Barrett does. The defense returns a lot more. I think it returns a lot more people than people will get, or returns a lot more talent than people will give them credit for. I think the most talented player on the defensive side of the ball this year will be relying on Raekwon McMillan, a most likely first-round pick. Now, Ohio State, again, the reason why I and a lot of other people think they will be successful this year is all those expectations to be repeat national champions. Again, talking about being one of the most talented teams in the last decade. I never fared well for Ohio State. And I think this is a year where they can finally get back to what they need to do and actually focus on one quarterback system. All right, so we're moving back into the West now. And let's go ahead and start with the number 7. And obviously, as you can see here, it is Purdue. Again, a team that I think a lot like Rutgers is going to struggle this year in what is a thin Big Ten West, but a Big Ten West that I think will be improved, because it's hard to get worse than what they were. And even looking at the next team up from them, or the next few teams up from them, I don't know how many wins are going to be able to be brought out of this year for Purdue. You hope and they get back to at least respectability. I believe a 2 or 3 win team last year. Out of conference schedule isn't anything too intimidating, but Cincinnati and Nevada will still put up. I'd say they are, both those teams are just as talented, if not better, than Purdue. Eastern Kentucky should be a win. But anyway, see what happens there. So at number 6, we got the Minnesota Golden Gophers in a spot that, I like Minnesota. They could very well be a bowl team this year, because they do bring back one of the more intriguing quarterbacks in the country. If you watch my Pac-12 preview, I actually mentioned them against Oregon State, which I think they'll win. They got Mitch Leidner coming back, who could be an NFL quarterback this coming year. But this is a team that competed with Michigan. This is a team that was a bowl team again last year. But like I said, I think this is going to be an improved Big Ten West on almost every level. And Minnesota, I could feel like, they lost Jerry Kill, that guy that really brought their program to a good, consistent level the last couple of years. And losing him, I think, could hurt. But again, I think there's going to be a rise in this division that, like I said, I could see Minnesota being left out of the top 5 with. So at number 5, I've got a team that really intrigues me for this year, and it's the Illinois Fighting Illini, a team that seems like it's gotten the blunt end of things the last couple of years. A team that through the mid-2000s, was actually a respectable team, competed in the top 25 at times. And this past year, I believe, coming off of 4 or 5 win season. So, a team that brings in a coach in Lovie Smith, crazy that he was one of the best coaches in the NFL a couple years ago, and now he's with Illinois. It seems like a good fit, and you know what? There was one time where Lovie Smith was considered in the same realm as Jim Harbaugh as an NFL coach. Around the time he brought the Chicago Bears to a Super Bowl. But this is an Illinois team that does have a big game against North Carolina out of conference. That's going to be a big test for them. Western Michigan will not be a pushover either. They're one of the better non-Power 5 teams. Anyway, get off that. They do have a pretty easy drawing conference, and I think they will be good. Obviously, Lovie Smith coming in should be able to flip things around. West London quarterback. But anyway, get on to my next team, which is the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I'm not going to cover them too much because I've covered them a lot already in a lot of my preseason stuff, and I will cover them pretty heavily in my team previews. They bring back a lot of talent, but I just don't think that the turnovers, I don't think that Tommy Armstrong's going to be able to take that next jump. If he does, then they will be good. I do still think Nebraska will be a bold team. They have they do have too much returning talent to completely fail out, I think. And I do still think this is going to be a team that is top 4 in this division, but a lot of people have them as number 2 or 3, and I just don't see that yet. So, get back on track here at number 3, and I've got the Northwestern Wildcats. So, an interesting situation here. Northwestern, a team that I believe returns their starting quarterback in Clayton Thorson, who obviously struggled to finish out the year last year. This is a team that beat Stanford last year at one point, so they're not by any means bad. Just because they got whooped by Tennessee in their bowl game, like 45-10. Again, not a good way to finish out the year for them. They were like number 12 heading into that game. Still was a 10-win team last year. Still could very much be a 10-win team again this year. Again, it tough out-of-conference draw between Duke and Western Michigan. Those will be 2 tightly contested games. And they do get a draw of Michigan State out of the Big Ten East, which will be a tough game to win. But again, a team that I like heading into this year. So at number 2, and a few of you guys might be surprised by this logo that comes up here, but I do have the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, the Iowa Hawkeyes were a touchdown drive 4 points away from not playing in the Big Ten Championship, from not playing in the Rose Bowl against Wisconsin. There were more games than that Iowa was close with, and I still fully believe Iowa will have a successful season, but they have a target on their backs now. They are not in the same sleeper underdog role they were last year. I do believe that they still return Jordan Canzeri. They do still return C.J. Beathard at quarterback, and obviously one of the best players one of the best defensive backs in the country, if not the best, in Des King on defense. So he should be able to lead that defense very well. Again, no disrespect to you Iowa fans out there, but again, I just think it's the way things are going to happen this year. So getting into my number 1, and I do have the Wisconsin Badgers. Now, again, it's a team that's going to be moving in a new direction this year. Getting the Joel Stave era over with, I think, was honestly a good thing for this team. And I got one player that obviously this entire season is going to hinge on for them, and that's Cory Clemente. If he can have the type of season everyone expected him to have last year, obviously health is going to be a big thing for him. If he can have a season, that puts him up there with some of the better Wisconsin running backs the last 5-10 years, Chris Wells, Beanie Wells, I guess, the way most people know him, P.J. Hill, Melvin Gordon, those players, then Wisconsin will be, in my opinion, back to being the best team in this division, and be able to play for a Big Ten championship. So that concludes my overall standing previews for the Big Ten. I want to get into talking about what I think will happen in the Big Ten championship if it is Wisconsin-Ohio State. Normally an entertaining game, But if you did see my college football playoff predictions, I had Ohio State, and I think they will end up as the Big Ten champs once again. So, getting into my Big Ten Player of the Year, or Offensive Player of the Year, I think it will be Cory Clemente. Again, I could see him carrying the batters this year, and kind of returning stronger than he was last year. And didn't really meet expectations. Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, I think, will be Desmond King, cornerback for Iowa. Again, I believe 14 interceptions last year, crazy number. He won the award for best defensive back in college football last year, and I think it'll be pretty much easy money for him to get Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year this year. Big Ten newcomer, mentioned him earlier, Rashawn Gary, number 1 recruit in the country this past year, going to Michigan. I think he'll make a big impact along their D-line. Big Ten Coach of the Year, I think, will be Jim Harbaugh. Michigan and Ohio State, I think, will be neck and neck for that, crown for best overall team in the Big Ten. So dark horse for me, Wisconsin. That's pretty obvious at this point. I think that Wisconsin, like I said, if Cory Clemente plays big this year, then Wisconsin will be big. Again, I never like to say it all hinges on one player's shoulders, but I think it's a somewhat similar situation on a smaller scale, but to what Christian McCaffrey is dealing with at Stanford right now, where he can be one of the best players in the country and probably will be. I'm not saying Cory Clemente's on that level. I think he has the talent to be. Might not be yet though. But anyway, for me, it's something where if Cory Clemente can carry him that far, then they will be probably a 10-11 win team, be able to at least make it to the Big Ten championship. So, again, I didn't do a whole lot in depth for them for my actual team preview, but I think my disappointment is going to be Nebraska. For reasonable expectations, I don't think it's going to be a disappointment. I still think they're going to be a bowl team. I still think they're going to be good. I just don't think that they're going to challenge or be a sleeper for the college football playoff like a lot of people think they are. So that pretty much concludes this video. Again, I don't know what much else to say. That's pretty much it. Yeah.